Hello and welcome to another episode of the Good Hearted Podcast. Now, I have to say, I thought I was looking cute in this outfit with this hair, and now that I see it on my monitor, I'm like, I look kind of frumpy. I've got my granny bra on because I had two bras break in the last month. One, the strap just flew off of me, and then another one, the underwire was coming through. So all I have is like the one that I started wearing after I was so used to wearing nursing bras, and I was like, I'm never going back to a structured bra again. But anyway, so it makes me look a little frumpy today, but we're going with it because I have been recording some episodes today. I'm feeling good. I'm excited to get into this next topic. So sorry if I look like not very put together today, but it is what it is. So, in today's episode, I wanted to talk about something that hopefully you can relate to because I feel like my audience is mostly millennial women. And so yeah, I figured we could have a chat without all the other generations poking their nose into our business. Because basically, I don't know about you, but as a millennial, I feel a little misled, lied to, promised all these things that I'm never going to get. And I got to be honest, it's kind of pissed me off. But now that I'm almost 30, I'm realizing that it was all a lie and it's okay. I'm learning things. I'm learning new things, trying to deal with the hand that I've been dealt. And we have these wonderful things called apps and social media that have allowed us to see into each other's lives and upbringings and just how the culture has shifted. And I feel like millennials are such a unique and important generation that gets shit on a lot by people who are older than us and younger than us, which I'm just like, you little turds need to sit down. Like, I'm not here to play with Generation Z. Although I do love them and I'm learning a lot from them, but I'm just tired of being caught in the middle of these generations that are so totally different. And so today's not really going to be anything, insightful, helpful, probably, just hopefully a little validating. And if you are a millennial, hopefully you will relate to what I'm saying and maybe, cut yourself a break because it was all lies. Everything that we thought was going to be waiting for us after we graduated high school was not there. And that's okay. We're dealing with it one day at a time. So, most of us millennials were raised by Gen X people who were raised by boomers. And the boomers were raised by people who had lived through the Great Depression and had seen a lot of hard times. And, the boomers, for the most part, this, of course, is not everybody, this is a huge generalization, but boomers were deprived of a lot of things in their childhoods. And so then they wanted to give their kids everything that they could. And so they didn't always teach them, the certain lessons that boomers had instilled in them. And Gen X, I feel like a lot of times was just flying by the seat of their pants. Of course, they had lots of fun times like the 60s, 70s, 80s, dare I say 90s, to really come into themselves and to grow up and live through some really interesting shifts in our cultures. But then they had us millennials, us 90s babies. And we saw two different worlds. We saw our grandparents who worked really hard, but for the most part, were probably retiring by the time we had early memories of them. Then we had our parents who were working all the time, workaholics, building that career, trying to chase the dollar and to give us kids everything that we could ever want, buy us the newest toys, having that mix of some responsibility, but also letting us be kids and have fun. And then they were dealing with social media and technology and how to handle that with their children. So this is definitely going to age me, but I remember the world before like Wi-Fi and after Wi-Fi, before 9/11 and after 9/11, before Y2K and after Y2K, and it's just so different. It is so different. And Gen X had more of a hard time adapting to the new technologies because they're older. And us millennials as kids were really good at figuring out whatever stupid Windows program came out next and figuring out how to communicate with our friends in this new way. And our parents just kind of sat back and was like, I don't know what the fuck's happening. Like, you do your thing. I don't understand you. I don't know what you're talking about. And then also being scared of the technology and the connectivity that social media and things like that gave us. So we grew up in this really odd time. Back in the day, I had a landline and I had to memorize my friends' phone numbers and, I would call them on my landline when nobody else was using my phone. We even ended up eventually getting wireless landline phones, which was like a big deal. And I think it had multiple lines on it at one point, like towards the very end. I had an AIM account and I would spend hours chatting with people on the computer that I had literally seen at school that day or whatever, because I didn't really have texting and texting wasn't as easy as IM was. And then also, like, the one girl in my high school who even had an iPhone, like, that was a big deal. And then I had a phone that had internet, but it didn't really have internet and it did not have apps. And I didn't even get Facebook until I was a junior in high school. And just all of these things that it was like, as kids, we grew up with the old way of things and technology kind of grew with us. And now we have this Gen Z after us that everything comes so easy. They're making like filthy amounts of money on TikTok and YouTube. And you're just like, what the fuck? I thought I was on that train. I missed that train. And so anyway, being a millennial is weird. It's confusing. And if you were like me, when you were growing up, your society, the culture, not necessarily just your parents, just like the overall expectation of us in school was to go to college and create a career path for ourselves right out the gate, right at 18. So every year, like while we were in high school, it was always leading towards, what college are you going to go to? What are you going to do with your life? And I'm just sitting here like, I don't know. I can barely like keep up with my part-time retail job that I have after school, but it just was drilled in my brain. Have to go to college. It's better to go to a university. Like, don't go to a community college if you can help it. All of these expectations. And supposedly, when I get to the other end of it, when I graduate, there will just be plenty of jobs sitting there waiting for me. And guess what? We grew up, we went to college, we racked up a shit ton of debt, and then there were no jobs, or no jobs that could actually pay back the debt that we had. And so then people started having to get careers in different areas that their degrees didn't even touch, but just because they had a 4-year degree, that was a prerequisite to get whatever job it was. Or if you got into the career field that you were hoping to, you maybe made way, way, way less money than you ever thought you were going to. And then you kind of fell into this hole of paying off debt, working constantly, trying to make yourself better by doing the things that society had outlined for us, and then realizing that it wasn't really worth it and that you're working so much for nothing. And so I feel like a lot of us who had Gen X parents that did not go to college, they encouraged us to go to college, as they should have. But then Gen Z after us realized, oh, there's no jobs left. Like, nobody's doing the technical jobs anymore and things like that, because everybody went to school to be a nurse, basically. And so it's just a very weird spot where you felt like you had to please your societal norms, basically, and the adults around you, mainly the ones in school. And then you kind of got to the end of your road and you realized all those things you thought were going to be there were not there. And that has been hard as a millennial, to realize that the world as an adult was not all of the wonderful things that seemed promised to us in our youth. And I always see these TikToks and things about millennials like drinking and being annoyed with everything. And, you know, I think that's just because we're tired. We're tired of having ridiculous expectations that we now know we can never reach or achieve, because of all the things that have been ingrained in us since we were young. Our body image issues, our financial expectations, our hopes and dreams for our careers, everything just seemed to be, the bar just always seemed to be set so high. And now we're realizing that the joke was on us because we never would have been able to reach it anyway. And so now that I am almost 30 years old, I have looked back at my life and tried to think about the things that were ingrained in me when I was much younger and how I can switch that way of thinking now, how I can make changes and just strive for something different, a more positive outlook and mindset on things compared to all the negative things. And basically having a mindset that was based on the consequences instead of the reward and the good things that I got out of it. Doing everything out of fear instead of out of excitement and just because I wanted to do it, like, and it being that simple. And that is something that Gen Z has really helped me learn and embrace because they don't give a shit about anything. They don't care if you like them, hate them, they could care less. They're going to keep doing what they want to do. And I guess we'll see how that pans out in a couple years. But for the most part, those, to me, kids seem much more confident and have a way better head on their shoulders than I had at their age because I was constantly trying to be something and someone I was not. And a lot of that comes down to all of these things that we learned when we were kids. So I was just kind of thinking of some different things and maybe how they affect millennials as a generation. And it's mainly just shame, if I'm being honest. That's the one big connection I find with all of these things. All of the marketing campaigns, all of the things that we were taught in school and in church, it all revolves around some sort of shame. If you don't go to college, you won't amount to anything. If you don't start a career right after college, you will be worthless. You will never have that dream house. You'll never have that dream car. But at the same time, if you have a lot of debt, you will never be able to pay it off and you'll be paying it off until you're retiring and you won't be able to send your own kids to college. But how can you go to college and not have debt? Like, it's a lot of mixed messaging and it's very hard to navigate and figure out the right way to handle these things. And there's always been shame around financial obligations, whether it's having a lot of debt or trying to impress people that you don't even like by buying things that you don't even want and just creating a vicious cycle around that. Also, whether or not to go to therapy and get help. Older generations think that we need to just handle it, that we don't need medication, we don't need therapists, we need to just stop being, I don't know, big babies and take care of it, handle it, push things down, push through it. But then that's how we end up being old, cranky drunks that are just numbing ourselves constantly versus the younger generation who says, express yourself in any way you need to, whether that's talking to a partner or a friend or a therapist or on social media to thousands of strangers. Just I feel like we are caught right in the middle of all of these feelings and all of these ways of thinking. And it's really hard to work through some of those mindsets and shake the negative ones and adapt the positive ones. And not saying that like the older generation was all negative and the younger is all positive. There's definitely things to learn from both. But even though millennials get shit on all the time, I think we are a great generation. I think we have the most to learn from the people before us and after us. And I think that we can become really amazing people by taking things from both sides. We know the value of hard work and of being smart and working smarter, not harder. We know the value of friendship and physical connection with people, but we also know that it's important to utilize things like FaceTime to reach out to people that are states away or in different time zones and still be able to have a relationship with them through the technology that we are given. We know to trust our gut and our instincts, but also to trust science and the way the new world is developing and to not be too scared of technology, like a little scared, like of AI. and robots taking over everything like I am. But at the same time, not keeping that fear holding back the progress that our world is making. And so I think that if you are a millennial, you are doing a great job and doing the best that you can do. I want to encourage you to keep unlearning old ways of thinking that don't serve you anymore and trying to put a positive spin on them and see what you can learn from it and see what you can still implement today that can be helpful and useful to you, but not chain you down, if that makes sense. And I know I've been generalizing a lot of things in this episode because it's hard not to when I'm talking about a whole damn generation of people. But I think that millennials can have a lot of values that were taught to us by people who are older than us and move forward in love and compassion and patience. Not all the time. Like, we won't always be perfect, but I think we can be a good balance of the two things because we've just, like I said, we've seen two different worlds, which is crazy when you think about it. Even after Christmas, we were watching the Die Hard movies, and, Bruce Willis is on a plane with his gun, like, on his belt, like, sitting on the plane. I was like, that was before 9/11. Like, that would not have happened. And, my sisters who are younger than me, like, don't remember what the airport used to be like, and even being able to smoke inside restaurants, like, it's just so different. It is so different now, and I think it is so cool and unique that our generation has seen these, like, major shifts, even though they haven't always been good ones, and some of them are really annoying, but I still think it's pretty damn cool, so embrace it. If you are a millennial, congrats. I think you're cool. At least we're part of the same club, and, I'm also loving all of these, like, 90s, not really the early 2000s, but the 90s trends. I can get on with those. So I guess this episode was mainly just to tell you, if you're a millennial, I like you and good luck out there because it's a little rough and I at least can relate to you. So I'm sorry. This was like a super random and kind of weird episode, but I'm going with it. And I hope that you enjoyed it and I didn't ramble too much. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, please be sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you in my next video.